Well, folks, I have a story out of Texas that I want to share with y'all. But before we get to that, I want to take a minute and thank everyone out there who's hit the subscribe button here on the channel. When I sat down to make this video, we were at 445,000 subscribers. That's pretty mind-boggling to me. We're trying to get to 500,000 before Trump's inauguration on January 20th. And by the way, I say we set that thing out. I say we don't tune in, we don't watch it, we don't give him the ratings, because we know that that's really all he cares about. And I have no desire to sit and watch him lay his hand on a Bible and swear to protect and defend the Constitution when he said he would terminate it at any time he's seen fit. So I'm going to be setting that one out, and I think we all should. But I truly appreciate you guys for coming along on this long and hard and bumpy ride with me. We got a long 4 years ahead of us and a lot of work to do. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, and I thank you so much for doing so. This is another story that when I heard it, I thought, dang, I really hate to report on this and share it, but I do believe that we just need to raise awareness. That's the whole purpose of this in my mind, is to raise awareness and let people know that these types of things are going on. So this story here comes to us from the Midas Touch Network. It was written by Aaron Parnas. Texas Maternal Mortality Committee skips reviewing 2 years of maternal deaths. The deaths occurred in the 2 years following the Dobbs decision and the Texas state abortion ban. So, the Texas Maternal Mortality Committee has announced that it will not be reviewing any deaths in the 2 years after the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade and led to Texas passing one of the most restrictive abortion restrictions in the nation. The committee will be meeting for the next time on December 6th, where it will begin reviewing maternal deaths in 2024. But the committee has announced that it will not go through and review the backlog of maternal deaths in 2022 and 2023, causing a public outcry. In making the decision, the committee cited the need for efficiency in reviewing maternal deaths and the backlog of the cases that are currently present. The public, however, is demanding that the committee conduct a full review into the deaths in 2022 and 2023, especially following recent reporting from ProPublica, which made clear that there were at least 3 preventable maternal deaths in Texas due to the state's restrictive abortion ban. Now, due to the committee's decision, the public may never know the true cause of the maternal deaths that occurred in the post-Dobbs era, an era that was marked by restrictive abortion restrictions in Texas. It's unclear whether the committee will change its decision. This news comes as a similar committee in Georgia was completely disbanded by the Georgia government after one of the members of the committee was accused of leaking data to ProPublica that allowed ProPublica to report the Georgia's abortion ban led to preventable death of multiple women. And again, that was by Aaron Parnas from the Midas Touch Network. So we did cover that story out of Georgia here on the channel. And when we did, I asked the question, how are we supposed to raise awareness and let people know the consequences of elections if we don't have access to these types of stories? If these stories are never made public and we never hear about them, then how are we supposed to let people know just how serious of a situation that this truly is? You know, I've always felt like that in MAGA, there's no gray area for them. They're either on one side or the other. There's no middle ground. There's no gray area. They just pick a side and jump on it. And so many of them will jump on the side of Trump and whatever he says goes, and they don't look at the serious situations that we're facing. There's no gray area with them. It's just like, well, if you don't want an abortion, don't get one, or move to a bluer state, they'll say. And then they'll say they want to have a convention of states where that other states can force the rest of us to live exactly like they do. So their whole kicking it back to the states argument never makes sense to me when they follow up with things like that. But you have people like that out there who doesn't see the bigger picture of this issue. So I'm just going to break it down on a personal level. One of the mothers of my children once needed a D&C. She had a miscarriage and she needed a D&C, and she was able to get it. We took her to the hospital, she got it, and she came home and she recovered. Amber Thurman down in Georgia needed one and didn't get the chance to get the help she needed and passed away because of it. And when I read Amber's story, I said to myself, that could have been me burying the mother of 2 of my children. That's what's at stake, and a lot of people don't realize it because they were too fixated on the price of eggs. But let's just cut right through the bullshit. Yeah, they use that as an excuse that they wanted cheaper eggs and a cheaper grocery bill, but the truth is they were caught up in Donald Trump and his WWE storyline so hard, and they wanted to own the libs so bad that I really believe most of them voted for him just simply for their hate for the rest of us. It was just like to stick it to us and then try to own us. But what they don't realize is the seriousness of these situations. They don't realize that one day they could be standing beside the bed of their daughter who needs help. They could be standing by the bed of their wife. They could be standing with a friend who's saying, what am I going to do? I can't get the help I need. And now there's a good chance that when those stories happen, we may never even hear about them. But all we're going to hear is whatever they can sensationalize. All we're going to hear is whatever they can use to stoke fear and paranoia in everybody. They will anytime they can pin something on an immigrant coming across the border, they'll definitely bring that story up and scream that from the rooftops to keep people living in fear. But they want to sweep all this under the rug so that people doesn't realize just how severe the situation is. And it's truly sad. You know, I use the phrase elections have consequences. I hate using it because, to be honest with you guys, I guess I was just naive in thinking that everyone should be smart enough to realize that. But like I said, MAGA was so caught up in their WWE storyline that they were going to vote for Trump no matter what he did. Then there was a whole lot of people who just stayed home and just set it out because they didn't feel like that it mattered. Or maybe they didn't like Kamala Harris enough, or whatever the case may be. Or maybe they just got tired of the whole political argument and decided to set it out. And I've heard people say things like, I don't vote for either party, I don't vote for either side, and therefore, you know, I can just sit back and complain all I want to. Now, I'm a big George Carlin fan. He's one of my favorite comics of all time. But he said that in a skit, and a lot of people latched onto it that he didn't vote. And hey, that was his choice if he didn't want to. But I feel like that when you set something out and you don't let your voice be heard, then what's the point of you sitting back and ranting at the two sides? You could sit and argue that one side was better than the other all day, but I feel that's very cowardice to me, and I feel like it's a cop out, and I feel like when people do that, it's because they don't ever want to have to take one on the chin. Listen, when Kamala Harris lost, I had hundreds of messages and thousands of comments from people flexing at me. And I had to get back in the saddle and go back to work and continue to do what it is that I do. I had to take one on the chin and say, okay, this happened, and now how are we going to move forward? How are we going to move past it? The other side, don't worry about that. And the people that stayed home and tries to act like, oh, well, it didn't really matter. I didn't really care one way or the other. It didn't affect me. It can affect you. There's a good chance that it's going to affect you. And when it does, now there's a good chance that none of us are ever going to hear about it. And that's not a world that I ever want us to live in. It's truly not. But unfortunately, that's where we're headed. I think people have to understand that sometimes you vote for what you feel is the best interest of everyone and not just a few. And that's why I've always voted Democratic. Am I saying the Democratic Party is perfect? No. Do I have problems with the DNC? Hell yes, I do. There is so much about it that I wish was different. There's so much about it that I would change if I had the power to do it. But I don't. All I can do is sit here in this chair every day and talk and try to reason with people and try to help them see the bigger picture. Do we always get the dream candidate on our side? No. But I tell you one thing, had we had Kamala Harris going into office, the future, I believe, would look a lot brighter for stories like this, because we would have had someone at least on the side of women. And now they're over here spinning their stories any way they can. Oh, well, Trump actually does protect women. He's protecting them from people coming across the border. Again, a way to instill fear and paranoia in their voters. Meanwhile, these real stories that are happening are going to get swept under the rug, and people could, be banned or barred for even bringing it up. I don't know where we go from here, to be honest. I don't know how that you let people know elections have consequences if you're silenced and not allowed to tell them what the consequences are. And as bad as I hate to say this, the only thing I can really see is, well, I guess if we have several years of this happening, eventually people will start speaking up and saying, hey, that happened to me. Why isn't anyone reporting on it? And it's really sad that there's going to have to be that much suffering before some people finally wakes up and comes to their senses. But again, that's the world we're living in, and we're going to be in for a while. But we just got to keep putting in the work and moving forward. And I thank you guys so much for supporting what I do here on the channel. I'm just a guy sitting here in a chair or sitting out on my back porch just trying to make sense of the crazy world around me. I don't claim to have all the answers, and I don't claim to always get it right, and I don't claim to be an expert in every field. I'm not. there's a whole lot of stories that I set out because I don't understand the technicalities of it. I don't understand everything that goes into it, and I don't want to sit here and spread misinformation and give advice on things I don't know about. I react to stories that I see, and I react to them in a way like, hey, this concerns me, and I call out hypocrisy when I see it, and I call out injustice when I see it. But I'm not an expert on anything, and I appreciate you guys for coming along with me. It means a lot to me that you're here, and we'll just keep putting in the work because that's at this point, folks. That's all we can do. We're gonna have a long ride ahead of us, but we'll just keep pushing forward and keep bringing these stories to light whenever we can because people needs to know. Yes, elections have consequences, and these are the consequences. It's sad that we're here, but we are.